In previous episodes, we've talked about the nature of the divine child, and we've looked at the aspects of the archetype, and we've looked at its manifestations in the Mandalorian and the Witcher. So we've looked at this topic a few times, but there's another angle I want to throw into it here, and it comes, I believe, from a book by Carolyn Miss on the 12 archetypes. And really good book, I highly recommend it. She talks about the 4 archetypes of the departure, the 4 archetypes of the journey, and the 4 archetypes of the return. So beautifully broken up, and the 12 of them are very interesting. But the first 2 archetypes are the 2 sides of the divine child archetype. And they're something that are within us all. All these 12 archetypes are within us all. But this distinction between the 2 types of the divine child is, for me, it's really fascinating. So the first is the orphan, and the second is the innocent. And the innocent is, so you can be partial more towards one or the other, and you generally will, but I guess in your life you want to have more of a balance between them, and you'll see why as we're talking about it. So both of these are forms of the inner child. And this is, every one of us has an inner child, obviously, and how that relates to the world. So the innocent's perspective on the world is that the world is inherently a good place, and everything will work out for the best. And it's an openness and a faithfulness in the nature of the world. And this tends to become more and more common in times of peace, and as civilization becomes more developed and peace becomes more common. So that's what we're seeing with things like the social justice movement, is that people feel like society is going good enough that we can actually make society equal for everyone, we can make society safe for everyone, and it's that noble goal of we can make the world a more perfect place. So it's a belief in utopia, and it's a belief in the goodness of the stranger and in the inherent goodness of humanity. So that would be the worldview of the innocent archetype. And the danger with that is that you can become naive. If you're all innocent and no orphan, there's a potential to become naive, and for bad agents to manipulate your good nature to get what they want. They know how they can play on your innocence, and that the perhaps the naivety that comes from being over innocent, and they can use that for their own purposes if you're too good. So that would be the innocent archetype. And on the other hand, there's the orphan archetype. Now, the orphan believes that the world is an inherently dangerous place, and the way we get past that is by bonding together. So your tribe is what matters most to the orphan. It's about the people you can trust, the people around you that you know and are reliable, and banding together. And it's kind of like just a little tribal band of orphans who come together, and it's them against the world kind of thing. So that would be the perspective of the orphans, that anyone outside of their tribe, outside of their grouping, is fair game in some way, that they're not part of the group, and so there's a different morality that applies to them. And obviously it comes from viewing the world as a negative place, and you take what you can get, and because the world is hostile, you've got to be hostile. So it's a victims or Viking kind of mindset that you've got to take, and you only look after your own because only your own will look after you. The world doesn't look after you. And so that's a completely different attitude to the innocent. And the danger of the orphan, of course, is being surrounded by shadows. The world is an inherently unfriendly place and a dangerous place, and so you can miss a lot of opportunities, you can miss a lot of joy, and you're less likely to trust people and build those relationships. Whereas an innocent, because they think that everyone is all good, there's much more people for them to connect with, and there's a much more openness to new relationships and new opportunities, because they believe that the world and the universe is working towards a positive end goal, and they just have to find their place in that. So it's kind of like the perfect snowflake versus the kind of cynic who sees that the innocent is a bit of a chump. And so you don't want to get caught in either of these too much, because with innocence comes the naivety, and yeah, I mean that can be its own dangers, because you don't see, if you've ever met someone who's overly innocent or naive and sheltered, I guess, it just makes them, I guess, open to a certain type of manipulation. You see that a lot in kind of new age and spirituality, where you get these gurus who can reel people in because they believe everything that this person says and fall hook, line and sink, and that's quite a dangerous thing. Whereas on the other side, the danger of the orphan is obviously it's not really good for society if you get someone who's really strongly orphaned because they think look after yourself, look after your own, and whatever the cost to anyone outside of that small grouping. So it's not really the most pro-social thing in peaceful and civilized society, though it's very helpful maybe in times of more dark ages, more when people are less trustful and when there are people out there that are doing more harm. So when the world is dominated more by groupings of orphan archetypes, then it's perhaps the right attitude to have. So I think it's something, even at any time and in any place, you want to have a balance of them. The innocent attitude gives you an openness to opportunity and a friendliness towards people, and it lets in a lot of light, but it can be manipulated, as we said. Whereas the orphan archetype, on the other hand, is very good at protecting itself against those sort of manipulations, but on the other hand, it can become its own sort of prison. So those are two aspects that we kind of see within every one of us, and it's just an inherent archetype of the human psyche, and you will lean one way or the other, but they are both within you. And I guess the goal, as with so many things, is to find the balance and to bring those two into a good working order. So that's everything for today. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have, please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Otherwise, I shall see you next time. Thank you for watching.